Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome back to Voice of Youth. And here in the fourth episode, we are once again joined with Sirtaj and Dayabir Singh as we talk more about school experiences, but in regards to racism. So let's join them now. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So how are you two doing today? You guys all right still?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm good.
Another relaxing morning or tiring morning?
Yeah, I mean, relaxing, I'd say, for me.
Yeah. All right. So last week on the last episode, we actually talked about your experiences in isolation and going back to school with everything going on with the pandemic. So continuing on with school experiences, I thought it'd be a great idea to talk to you two about the experiences of racism or any sort of like similar situations you may have experienced in school situations, because we've grown up several years apart. So what I experienced would be very different, especially because I was in late primary school when like the whole aftermath of 9/11 was going on, and that really affected the Sikh image. And even though we're not associated with that directly, people associated us with the kind of terrorism that happened back then. And you've already grown up in a time which several years after in school experiences regarding that. So I'd like to know what your type of experiences are with racism in schools.
Well, with me, so I actually I was born here, but I started my schooling in India, like nursery and prep and all that. And I only moved here halfway through prep. So, but in India, I went to a school in Gurgaon, and I did experience, like, I didn't feel it back then, but now that I reflect on it, I did experience a bit of racism there, that I was treated a bit differently, not just by students, mostly by teachers actually, that were in the school. But my blatant like racism experiences really started in year 2.
Year 2, okay.
Yeah, and so it ranges from things like being called terrorists and simple things like I don't know, one kid told me to go back to Mumbai and shit on the streets or something like that. And yeah, that's my racism experiences mainly.
Yeah. How about you, Dayabir?
Funnily enough, I haven't had too much racism in my life. It's probably mainly because, I've lived here my whole life, and I've gone to places where the people have been more educated in their ways. So yeah, it's only been in the relatively more earlier years, where everyone's small, everyone's curious about things. They don't know, like, what they are saying can offend people.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was quite a bit of racism in the earlier years, and even in the new school, because like by the time I was in like year 4 and 5, my primary school knew what my turban was, what I stood for. And when I went into the new school, in year 7 and 8, there was quite a bit of racism there earlier on as well. But yeah, it was quite good after everyone was educated on what it actually was.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. Like in my experiences as well, it's more so in the early stages where you experience racism, and a lot of it is because one, they get these ideas from their parents, from their relatives, people in their life, and they're not educated about, why we wear the turban or why I have a bracelet on my wrist. And it's obviously, like I said, there were all these terrorist jokes. Staji also brought that up as well. I remember being called Bin Laden's son. I smile now because I'm looking back at it and I think, you just look back at it. But then at the times you think it's not healthy, it's not good. It's why do people say these kind of things? But then it is the main thing about education. And over time, I felt as well, like when I look back at my time during school, like sure, there's a lot of bad stuff, but then I mostly remember year 11, 12, and like the later years when people are educated, people aren't, people grow up in the sense while you still have school kids that are like rascals, they're not mean for the sake of being mean, they're just naughty. And I don't know if you guys believe that as well. Like, surely you still have like naughty kids in school.
Of course.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've experienced like a bit of racism last year and this year. The thing you said about Bin Laden's son, I
Wow.
got somebody said that Bin Laden was my uncle last year, and but most of my racism experiences, as you guys said, is like in the earlier years when people don't really know about what we stand for. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But then even if it still did happen to you last year, it's still, as much as it has gotten better, it's important to know that it's still a problem out there. And I can imagine a
yeah,
lot of
definitely.
other kids out there who are still very young in primary school, maybe in early high school, sorry, that are experiencing what we experienced when we first started off. And
Yeah,
I know there are a few cases because I've had conversations with um, parents and other people about these kind of things still happening, about bullying, and it's something that does happen early on. If you guys feel comfortable enough, is there any specific situation you might feel comfortable with sharing? If not, that's totally fine.
yeah. I mean, I don't mind since so I took Amrit in year two, and a lot of people started finding out that I wear a kirpan. So in year two, I don't even know how the kid knew what a terrorist was, but he started telling people that I'm a terrorist. And but the most recent thing is this year, there were rumors that somebody used a knife on school grounds, and everyone came to me, saying, "Oh, Taj, please don't stab me. Did you stab the kid?" Stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I feel comfortable sharing this stuff because I think it's something we do need to talk about because it's
Yeah,
an issue that I mean, I'm very sure that I probably haven't experienced the full brunt of racism as other students have, and because I have many Muslim friends as well, and they've shared similar stories about being called a terrorist and all that.
yeah. But it's important to also note that when we talk about experiencing racism, I don't like to think that it's just coming from one particular group of people that are being racist to us. Because in my experiences, I've studied several years as a teacher. I think both of you would know that. And I had several reasons why I did stop. One of them was there are many like issues with like the experiences I've had, and one of them was the students, even ones like were really racist to me still. And I'm a student teacher, but I like experiencing racism early on in my life. Yeah, I did that. But towards the end of high school and everything, it was better. Then I go back to a school situation and I walk past a kid who calls me ISIS. I have people who have, I would have assumed, experienced a great deal of racism being racist to me as well. And I went to several different schools, and there were so many different people calling me names regarding me in a derogative way. And it's surprised me to still see that, especially from people who I thought would have also experienced their own struggles.
Yeah.
Dayabir, do you have anything you'd like to share about your own experiences?
Yeah, you said you'd like to say that there's not one group of people, and in a way I do agree with that. But I like to classify everybody that is a racist like as uneducated in that area. You can, and then you can further split that up into, I reckon, like two more groups, as in like genuinely curious, like genuinely inquisitive about what you stand for and what you are, and then you have the group that are just trying to cause hate on you and be mean to you.
Yeah.
And in the earlier years of primary school, I found in my personal experience it's more like the inquisitive nature. Like I had a batka no gutti on my head, and they're like, "Can I touch it?" And you can tell if they're genuinely inquisitive, genuinely want to know what it is, and when they're just trying to hurt you. So there was a lot of "Can I touch it?" and then there was a lot of explaining. But earlier on in my kindergarten years, you could tell when someone was mean to you. I got kicked in the balls on my first day of kindergarten.
But speaking about like the patka and everything as well, the start as well, like there's one thing that you commonly get, like at least I got asked is like, what's the point of the color? One of my friends, I knew him for several years, and then he still asked me, "Oh, are you not covering your ears now because of something? Like, is this a summer version of the start or something?" It's just it's turban, the start. You know, why is there like a funky one? Why the different ones? But then as well, like, are you wearing a different color because of your mood or something? I got asked that again this year as well in uni. And the person wasn't asking out of any hate or anything. They were just wondering. I just find it interesting because you give it a different kind of connotation because it's like people don't wear a different colored hat because they're feeling happy. They don't wear yellow because they're happy. They don't wear red because they're angry regarding like hats and beads. It's just interesting why they would add that sort of idea with turbans and everything. Yeah, and I don't know if either of you would have thought this as well. When I was in early high school, primary school, and stuff like that, I also was kind of unsure about wearing a kurta and all these kind of other religious garments in public. I always felt like, I'd rather just wear like a shirt or something. Sneakily showing off Star Wars there, by the way. But then ladies, I was like, there's no problem in wearing it. Because Todd, you said you took Umar in year 2, it was. Did you ever, like, when out in public or like out with your school friends or anything, did anything happen outside of school, but like with like your school friends or anything where they talked about where you experienced racism with them, if that makes sense? Like if you're ever out with them and some random person says something, like how did your school friends react, or did they? What was the situation?
I haven't really experienced that much racism outside of school, actually, which is a bit concerning. But about the whole kurta thing in public, when I was younger, I was a bit conscious, like, I don't want to be different, I just want to be like, I'm not going to wear kurta because, it's weird. But now I just look at it and I'm like, whatever. I mean, this is my culture, this is their culture. And now if I'm going out to like Coles after going to the Gurdwara, I don't mind, going in my kurta.
Yeah. It's as well in when I was in high school, I went to a Catholic college, and it was interesting, like, because like I liked it because it gave me an opportunity to learn about other people's religion, and then the other people also had questions about my religion. So even though like in later years of high school, more so questions were asked, and they were more like we kept on touching on earlier. They weren't in an offensive manner. I talked about the turban, the star one. Like I never really used the word the star in front of non-Sikhs because I think turban is what the commonly used word is, and you give them another one, it's a lot for them. Do you guys ever believe that when trying to educate someone, it's easier to go with like you don't try to go into too much detail, you try to focus on simple things to teach them? When you tell them, we have 10 gurus, you don't tell them the specifics of each guru. You just tell them we have 10 gurus. Imagine there were 10 preachers of God, not God itself, that kind of stuff. Is any you've done?
I think that's really important that we do that, because when we do try to educate, most people aren't really interested in the details, If you start telling them, the individual history or going into too much detail about what the dastard is, the etymology or whatever, they start to lose interest. And them losing interest is not what we want here. We want them to stay interested and, continue to uphold, their respect for us. And disinterest usually means that, they're going to regard us, as in the wrong way. So it's important to simplify them, just call it a turban for the first time you're educating them. And gradually, I think it's important to, bring up the more sophisticated terms such as dastard or bug, then it's important to do that.
It was like another one with regarding gurdwaras. I always used to regard them as place of worship because a lot of people use the word temple. They associate us with other religions and similar practices they have. So then I don't like that because I wouldn't, like I said, I went to a college. I never said, are we going to go hold mass in the temple now? I would say going to church or something for the mass. And I would like to think that other people would say Gurdwara for us. I had a friend who he was always like, I actually went to he used the word temple when he was like doing some scouts thing, I'm pretty sure, or something of the situation, and he brought that up several times that I've known him. And then last year, or was it early this year, I like put a post on Facebook saying, sharing this post where you wouldn't call a church a temple, that kind of stuff. And I've been saying that for years. But then and then I was like, call it a gurdwara, that kind of stuff. And then he was like, I've been there before. I've never known it was called that. But then in my head, I'm thinking, I've said that several times, even though sometimes you may ease something to them, you may use the word place of worship or gurdwara, sometimes it's hard for people to still understand that or remember that. What would you two think we could do for, schools and students to kind of teach them? What would be the best way to make sure that they actually remember these kind of things?
One way I reckon for the term gurdwara, just for that term itself, for this term we could say you can either call it a gurudwara or you can call it a gurughar, right? So you could try educate them as giving at first the literal definition of them, the literal transliteration as guru's house or guru's door, and that's how I did it first. I used gurughar to educate my peers. So I'd say I'm going to the guru's house, and if they asked what the guru was, I would say, the God or the 10 gurus that I've already explained to them before.
Yeah.
So yeah, then that would be a simpler way, and if that would work with some other examples, that'd be perfect as well.
Yeah.
So do you think do you both have would have experienced any sort of groups coming into your school, or have you heard of any groups going to schools and trying to educate people, or do you ever watch any of these videos online that are trying to give the basics of Sikhi to a person? Do you think those are effective to school students to kind of help get rid of all these negative thoughts they have that could cause racism and other views to students?
I mean, in terms of educating, people about our religion, Sikhi, I mean, I think in year 6 or something, or yeah, something like that. My primary school, actually, a Catholic school, took all the children to a gurdwara, and as a part of it was a religious day. We went to a Russian Orthodox church, a masjid, and we also went to a gurdwara as part of that research or whatever. And the main attempt there was to show everyone about the different religions, and basically it was basically a day of education and to educate people on Sikhi.
Did you find that it was very effective with your fellow students? Do you think they learned a lot?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times people ask us questions about, oh, why do you do this? Why do you do that? And I felt like because there were 2 people that came to the Gurdwara that day to explain to the group, and they kind of just exploded with questions, and I feel like it was effective because they found out what they were always curious about, and I think it was pretty effective.
All right. Did anything similar happen to you, David?
Not really. In year 7 or 8, something along the lines of Daj, we were given a project to explore. I went to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Melbourne High after that as a government school. But in this Catholic school, it was one of the projects to, they required you to research other religions that are not Christianity.
Mm.
And one of them you had to, the 3 main ones you had to explore without no doubt was Judaism, Sikhism, and Islam. And you were free to choose any more if you wanted to. So there's quite a lot of questions asked to me because people are too lazy to go to the internet. So it was quite a very educational experience for them to research other religions that are not just Christianity.
Okay. Well, that's great to hear. I know that while I was still in high school, the late high school, I know some group of people, young Sikhs, went out to different schools. They went into one in Shepparton, I remember, and they had a talk with other students there, younger students. I was tried going out for captains and stuff in my school, try to represent the Sikh people. I know my parents, I know a bunch of other parents also did a lot for their own students in their specific schools, trying to create that awareness. And I think that's overall worked out effectively. And while, you know, racism, some of the things that we've touched on is still prevalent in schools today, and it will be for a while to come. It will take a while for these things that we've discussed to kind of ease out of being, you know, something that happens. And do you two have any final comments about your experiences, experience of others, or anything on the topic as a whole?
Well, I think, you know, when I was younger, I was really hurt when I experienced racism, and you know, people were treating me differently. But now that I look back on it, I just see that it's a matter of lack of education, and you know, following things that they see from their parents and you know other people. And I think the way to eliminate racism as an issue in society is that we need to educate children when they're younger that you know there's people that are different to you, there's people that believe in different things, and you know you need to respect that. And I feel like once we start educating you know younger children from a young age, it will, I think it will be better for the future generations.
Yeah. And you, Dayabir?
There's two people who are experiencing racism out there. You know, if you are experiencing racism, I reckon it's very important to stand up for yourself. You know, not to just let it pass and let it go, because after that it would continue happening. So it's definitely take the initiative to educate them, teach them what, you know, what they are doing is wrong, teach them about your religion, your faith, you know, what you are wearing on that day. So it's definitely important to stand up for yourself.
Yeah. And touching on that real quick before we finish this off this episode, if you are experiencing racism, whether it is in school or university or outside of it, there are people you can go to. So make sure you talk to your family, make sure you talk to the respective staff members there, any counselors, or go out to any of the mental health organizations that you can reach out to. Because even though there are many people that do it, you know, are ignorant to what they do, they don't mean any harm, you still can be affected. But I know I was, and I'm sure you two were in your own rights affected by the racism. And it is important for us to just make sure if you are out there, if you are struggling, reach out. Everyone is here to help you, okay? But with that all said and done, thank you, Sirtaj and Dayabir, for joining me on this another episode of Voice of Youth. It was a pleasure to talk about this topic. And if anyone out there has their own experiences they'd like to share, you can also message me on Facebook or Instagram and contact me and message me about that there. And we can talk more about this if you'd like to come on the show or even just share your own experiences in future episodes. So thank you for joining me today, the two of you. Thank you for watching this episode. And to everyone out there, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.